Chicago is confounding. Chicago is just losing dudes left and right. They've had the worst injury luck of anybody in the entire league this year.
Yeah.
And you look at the standings, and where's Chicago? Oh, no, they're still the number one seed. So they're a team that has, basically they have Derrick Jones is expiring at 9.7, and then the Patrick Williams card. And they're sending out the signals, we're not trading him. We would have to get something amazing. I really like Patrick Williams. And the question, if you're Chicago, is can we make the finals if we put those two guys together and get somebody awesome? And I don't know the answer to that. What do you think?
I think the answer is probably no, just given who's out there. Unless there's some candidate, some trade option that we're not thinking about. But in terms of the names that are out there and what you could reasonably get for like a Patrick Williams-centric trade package, I don't see it. And I think as you mentioned, their roster has been injured enough. They've had so many guys out. I could see them being in wait-and-see mode. And the mix of what they've had has been so potent when their guys are healthy. I think they just kind of sit on it, wait for Pat Williams to get back next season, see how he fits into all of this. Maybe they make a move on the edges somehow, but I don't see anything significant for Chicago.
What if Sacramento calls and says, let's have the Harrison Barnes conversation?
For who?
We'll take Pat Williams back.
Oh,
throw
no.
in the Jones expiring.
Definitely not.
And now you have Harrison Barnes. He could play crunch time in a playoff series for you.
You do
Aren't
have
you guys
Harrison
trying to
Barnes.
win the title? So you're out on that.
I'm out on that, but bless Sacramento for trying. You got to do your due diligence. That's the way it goes.
You want somebody a notch higher than Harrison Barnes?
I think Pat Williams has the chance to be a low-level star. And so
I'm with it. I'm with you.
If you're going to give that up, it's got to be a real deal, lock this guy into the core of our team kind of player. I thought the Jeremy Grant conversation was pretty interesting just because of what Chicago's particular needs are. But
I don't think he's good enough either.
I'm not sure he's good enough either. And I could see them just wrestling in their front office about it. There've got to be people in that building who are just sky high on what Williams could be. And we know who Jeremy Grant is. We know who he is on a bad team. We know who he is on a good team. That's a really useful player. But is it useful enough to get you to the Eastern Conference Finals, much less to a championship? I don't know.
So where they really need to be is flipping Jones into somebody better than Jones.
Yeah.
So is that Josh Richardson? Now they're a little compromised with picks that they have to trade.
Yeah.
And Josh Richardson is playing well for the Celtics. So that's probably a no-go.
I think they're more big inclined than they are guard inclined if you're going to trade Jones. Like they need length. They need a 4. They need a real backup 5. Those are kind of more of the needs for them to me than Richardson, who I think would be good, would be great for their pressure defense, but you kind of already have some of what he gives you between Ball and Caruso when everybody's healthy. Ayo Dosunmu, who's been so big for them.
So a 4 who can also play 5 if you go a little small. Who is that? Those are tough guys to find these days. It's what they had with Thad Young, basically.
Yeah. If the Raptors trade for another center, could you get in on Chris Boucher to be that guy? Stretch guy. Pretty good at covering the perimeter for his size. I don't see a lot of comparison between him and someone like Grant other than length, but they need length. They need length at that spot. They need somebody who can fill those minutes capably, who can give them a little bit of stretch. I could see that, or else you're getting into, as we've circled around with some of these other teams, Kelly Olynyk kind of territory, maybe Trey Lyles kind of territory, kicking the tires on some of these guys who are just kind of filling in on lottery teams. Maybe there's an answer there. I don't think it's a great one, but maybe that can fill you some minutes, at least for an early playoff round series.
Do you think they would do the Vucevic trade again if they had a do-over on that?
Do you get DeRozan if you don't have him, is the question.
Probably not.
And so then I think you have to do it. And that was kind of their thinking from the start was we need to entice Zach LaVine to stay. We need to entice other players to come. And getting an all-star level big man is the way to do that. It's just unfortunate Vooch hasn't really lived up to his career, really. He's just having a down year in terms of shooting, really in terms of his entire offensive game right now.
Yeah, I wonder him and Fournier. Sometimes you could just put up stats on bad teams.
Fournier's been rough.
But when you're on a good team and you're not getting the same amount of touches, can go a little bit sideways. It's funny though that like what you just laid out with the Vucevic trade. The Celtics did that with Ray Allen when they traded the number 5 pick and and which became Jeff Green. I think Delonte West was in that trade. They traded for Ray Allen, and it made no sense to me. I'm like, what the fuck is this? So we have Ray Allen is in his early 30s and Paul Pierce and nothing else. Like, what are we doing? But Danny was smart enough to know if I do these two things, now I can get the third guy. And you're right, the Vucevic, there's a credibility that comes with it that allows you now. Is we have this guy, now we have Zach LaVine and Vucevic. Come on over. Now we could actually do something. It's weird that more teams don't try that. You know, that's why with OKC with Sabonis, like that, to me, that's an example of like, hey, look at our team. We have this guy and this guy and this guy and this guy. You know,
it's hard to think two big moves away like that. You know, you can think like the stepping stones to get the first star, but think about how do we get the second star and who's going to be the first guy that's attractive enough to play with to lure that second guy. That's some 4-dimensional chess that I think is very tough to play in a league where the players are constantly shifting around who's available, who's not, what they want, what they don't, what kind of situations they prefer. It's hard to read that stuff from afar.